The rain hit the metal roof like thousands of tiny bullets. The night was dark and cold. Strong wind moved across the empty fields outside the colony. Most people were asleep, but Ethan Carter was still awake. He sat alone near the window of his small house at the edge of the settlement. Years ago, he had served in the Human Defense Fleet. Now he lived a quiet life repairing machines and cargo vehicles. That was exactly how he liked it. No battles, no danger, no surprises, just peace. Ethan looked outside at the storm. Lightning flashed across the sky for a moment. The empty road in front of his house became bright white. Then darkness returned. He stood up and walked toward the kitchen. He was about to make another cup of coffee when he heard something strange. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan stopped moving. His eyes narrowed. Nobody visited this far outside the colony at midnight, especially during a storm like this. For a few seconds, he listened carefully. The wind howled outside, then the sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door, slowly. Ethan moved toward the wall and grabbed the old pulse pistol he kept for emergencies. His military instincts returned immediately. He checked the weapon, then he walked to the door. The security screen beside the entrance showed only static because of the storm. That made him even more cautious. Ethan unlocked the door, but kept one hand on his pistol. The door opened, cold wind rushed inside. For a second, he saw nothing. Then lightning flashed again, and Ethan froze. Standing outside was a child, a small alien girl. She looked no older than 8 years old. Her clothes were torn, mud covered her legs. Rainwater ran down her face, large silver eyes stared up at him. She looked exhausted, terrified, and completely alone. The child took a small step forward, her lips trembled. "Please, don't tell them," she whispered. Before Ethan could say anything, the girl collapsed. He caught her before she hit the ground. The child felt frighteningly light, like she had not eaten for days. Ethan quickly carried her inside and shut the door. The storm continued outside. But now his attention was completely focused on the mysterious girl. He placed her on the couch. A medical scanner sat on a nearby shelf. Ethan grabbed it and began checking her condition. The scanner displayed several warnings. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, minor injuries, but no life-threatening wounds. He sighed with relief. At least she would survive. The alien girl slowly opened her eyes. She looked around the room nervously. For a moment, she seemed ready to run. "It's okay," Ethan said calmly. "You're safe here." The child stared at him, almost as if she did not believe those words existed. Safe, maybe nobody had said them to her before. Ethan brought her a glass of water. She drank it quickly, then another, and another. Only after the third glass did she finally relax a little. "What is your name?" Ethan asked. The girl looked down. Silence filled the room. Several seconds passed. Then she shook her head. "I can't say," Ethan frowned. "Why not?" "They will find me." Her voice was barely audible. Ethan noticed fear in her eyes. Not normal fear, not the fear of a lost child. This was the fear of someone who had been running for a very long time. Before he could ask another question, an alarm suddenly sounded from outside. Both of them jumped. A loud voice echoed across the colony through emergency speakers. "Attention citizens, this is a level 3 security alert. Remain indoors and report any suspicious individuals immediately." Ethan walked to the window. Bright lights appeared in the sky. Several military drones moved through the storm clouds. Their searchlights scanned roads, buildings, and fields. The alien girl saw them too. Instantly, her face turned pale. She pulled a blanket around herself and backed away from the window. "No," she whispered. "No, no." "No." Ethan turned toward her. "Are they looking for you?" The child said nothing, but her frightened expression answered the question. Outside, the drones continued searching. More lights appeared in the distance. This was far more than a normal security patrol. Something serious was happening. Ethan's military experience told him that immediately. He looked back at the girl. Who exactly was she? And why would security forces search for a child in the middle of a storm? The questions continued building inside his mind. Then his home computer suddenly activated. A colony-wide emergency transmission appeared on the screen. A red warning symbol flashed repeatedly. The message displayed only a few words. Wanted individual detected in Sector 9 report. I am immediately ill. Why below the warning appeared a blurred image. The system was still downloading the complete file. Slowly, the picture became clearer. Ethan stared at the screen. Then his eyes widened. The image showed the same alien girl sitting in his living room. And beneath her picture was a bounty worth more money than Ethan had seen in his entire life. But what truly shocked him was the final line. The line that made his blood run cold, wanted by every major government in the galaxy. Ethan stared at the screen. For several seconds he could not move. The red warning symbol continued flashing. The bounty number looked impossible. No criminal, no pirate. Not even the most dangerous warlord in the galaxy had ever carried a reward this large. Yet somehow, a frightened little girl sitting on his couch was worth more than all of them combined. The alien child noticed his expression. Slowly, she looked toward the screen. The moment she saw her own picture, her face lost all color. Her hands began shaking. "They found me," she whispered. The fear in her voice sounded deeper than before. Not the fear of getting caught, the fear of something much worse. Ethan quickly disabled the transmission. The screen went dark. The room became silent again. Only the sound of rain hitting the roof remained. The girl kept staring at the blank screen, as if expecting soldiers to crash through the walls at any second. Ethan sat across from her, for the first time. He looked directly into her silver eyes. "Tell me the truth," he said. "Who are you?" The child lowered her head. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she looked up. "I don't know," Ethan frowned. "What do you mean you don't know?" "It's true," she said softly. "I don't remember." That answer surprised him. She did not sound like she was lying. She sounded confused, lost. Like someone who had spent years searching for answers and never found them. "What do you remember?" Ethan asked. The girl closed her eyes, trying to think. "I remember running. I remember hiding. I remember ships, many ships, and people always chasing me." Her voice became quieter with every word. "I don't remember before that." Ethan leaned back. Something about this situation felt wrong. Governments did not hunt children for 20 years without a reason. But they also did not spend billions of credits chasing someone who had no idea who they were. There had to be more to the story. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the house. Ethan rushed to the window. His heart tightened. A massive ship was descending through the storm clouds. It was not a colony patrol vessel. It was military, huge, black, and heavily armed. Searchlights swept across the settlement. The ship moved slowly above the colony, like a giant predator searching for prey. The girl saw it too immediately. She curled into a ball. "No," she whispered. "They're here." Ethan looked carefully at the vessel. His military training recognized it instantly. Not human, imperial. One of the strongest governments in the galaxy. The same empire that rarely entered human space. The fact that they were here meant this child was important far beyond anything Ethan had imagined. Then another ship appeared, and another within minutes. Several different fleets surrounded the colony. Ships from rival governments, enemies who normally hated each other. Yet somehow they were all working together tonight. All for one child. Ethan had never seen anything like it. His communicator suddenly beeped. A colony-wide message appeared. "Attention citizens, remain calm. Security teams will conduct house-to-house inspections. Cooperation is mandatory." Ethan's stomach tightened. House-to-house inspections. That meant they would eventually reach his home. The child looked at him with frightened eyes. For a moment, she looked smaller than ever. Just a scared little girl trapped in a nightmare. Please, she whispered. Don't let them take me, Ethan should have reported her. That was the safe choice, the smart choice. Any reasonable person would do it, but when he looked into her eyes, he saw something familiar years ago, during the war. He had seen the same look in refugee children, children who had lost everything, children who only wanted someone to protect them. He had promised himself he would never ignore that look again. Outside, vehicles began moving through the streets. Security teams were starting their search. Time was running out. Ethan stood and walked toward a storage room in the back of the house. After a moment, he returned carrying an old metal box. The girl watched him carefully. Ethan opened it. Inside were military supplies he had not touched in years, maps, emergency equipment, communication blockers, and a colony access card. The child stared at him. What are you doing? Ethan closed the box, then looked directly at her. Getting ready. For what? She asked. A faint smile appeared on his face. For a very long night, at that exact moment. Someone knocked on the front door. 3 hard knocks, not friendly, not patient, official. Both of them froze. Another knock followed, louder this time. A voice came from outside. Security inspection. Open the door immediately. The girl's eyes filled with panic. Ethan slowly reached for the pulse pistol hidden under the table. Outside, more boots approached the house. At least 6 people, maybe more. The search teams had arrived far sooner than expected. And if they found the child now, everything would be over. The voice outside spoke again, this time with clear warning. This is your final request. Open the door. Ethan looked at the frightened child. Then toward the back entrance of the house. An old escape tunnel connected to the maintenance system beneath the colony. Nobody else knew it existed, at least that was what he hoped. The soldiers began counting down. 3, the girl stood up, her hands shaking. 2, Ethan grabbed the metal box. 1, the door lock started opening from the outside. And Ethan made his choice. He took the girl's hand and ran toward the hidden tunnel. The moment the front door began opening, Ethan and the alien child disappeared into the hidden tunnel. A heavy metal panel slid shut behind them. Only seconds later, security officers entered the house above. Their boots echoed across the floor. Flashlights moved through every room. But Ethan and the child were already deep beneath the colony. The tunnel was old, dark and narrow. Small emergency lights glowed along the walls. Most people did not even know these maintenance passages existed. They had been built decades ago during the colony's construction. Ethan had discovered them years earlier while repairing underground power lines. Now that forgotten knowledge might save their lives. The child struggled to keep up. She was still weak from exhaustion. Her breathing grew heavier with every step. Ethan noticed immediately. We need to slow down, he said. The girl shook her head. No, they'll find us. Her voice carried the certainty of someone who had been hunted for a very long time. Ethan looked at her carefully. For 20 years, governments across the galaxy had searched for this child. And somehow she had survived. That alone was incredible. But the biggest mystery remained unanswered. Why? Why was everyone so desperate to capture her? Ahead of them, the tunnel split into 3 different paths. Ethan stopped. He activated a small map on his wrist device. Most routes led toward the colony center. That would be dangerous. Security forces would lock down those areas first. One route led beyond the colony walls and into the rocky wilderness outside. That was their best chance. Come on, Ethan said. They turned toward the outer passage above them. Distant alarms continued echoing through the colony. The search was growing larger, much larger. Meanwhile, inside the colony command center, panic was spreading. Dozens of officers stared at surveillance screens. Fleet commanders from several governments filled the communication channels. Everyone wanted updates. Everyone wanted results. But nobody had found the child. An elderly commander slammed his hand against a table. How does a little girl disappear? No one answered because nobody knew back in the tunnel. Ethan and the child finally reached an old maintenance exit. He entered an access code. The hatch opened slowly. Cold night air rushed inside. The storm had weakened. But rain still fell across the empty landscape. The colony lights glowed in the distance behind them. Ethan climbed out first, then helped the child. They stood among rocky hills and abandoned mining equipment. For the first time since leaving the house, they had a moment to breathe. At least that was what Ethan thought. Then the child suddenly froze. Her eyes widened. "What is it?" Ethan asked. The girl looked toward the sky. "They're coming." Ethan followed her gaze. At first he saw nothing. Then several dark shapes emerged from the clouds. Small, fast, silent. His stomach tightened. Drones, not colony drones, hunter drones, military grade. And they were heading directly toward them. "Move!" Ethan shouted. Both of them ran. The drones accelerated instantly. Bright scanning beams swept across the ground, searching, tracking, hunting. Ethan and the child raced between giant rock formations. The drones followed closely behind. One beam passed only meters away. A loud electronic sound filled the air. Target scan detected. The machines were getting closer, too close. Ethan knew they could not outrun them forever. Suddenly, one drone fired a pulse flare into the sky. A bright blue light exploded above them. The signal could be seen for kilometers. Ethan cursed under his breath. The flare was not an attack, it was a marker. Now every hunter in the area knew exactly where they were. Within minutes, more forces would arrive. The situation had become much worse. Then something strange happened. The alien child stumbled. She fell to one knee. Ethan immediately stopped. "You okay?" The girl did not answer. She was staring at her hands. A faint silver glow appeared beneath her skin. Tiny lines of light moved across her arms like flowing energy. Ethan's eyes widened. "What is that?" The child looked frightened. "I don't know." The glowing lines became brighter. The air around her began vibrating softly. Even the nearby rock started shaking. The drones noticed it too. They suddenly stopped advancing, almost as if they were afraid. Then, without warning, every drone in the sky shut down. Their lights vanished. Their engines died one by one. They fell from the air, crashing into the rocks below. Silence followed, complete silence. The storm, the alarms, even the wind seemed to pause. Ethan stared at the destroyed machines. His military experience told him something impossible had just happened. Those drones were protected against electronic attacks. Nothing should have disabled them so easily. Nothing except technology far beyond anything he had ever seen. Slowly, the silver glow faded from the child's skin. She looked just as shocked as Ethan. "I didn't do that," she whispered. "But you did," Ethan replied. The girl looked down at her hands. Fear returned to her eyes. Not fear of the hunters, fear of herself, before Ethan could speak again. A distant sound echoed across the hills. A ship engine, then another and another. Bright lights appeared beyond the mountains. Multiple vessels were approaching their position. The drones had succeeded after all. Their signal had reached the hunters. And now the real chase was about to begin. Ethan grabbed the child's hand once more. His voice became serious. "We have to keep moving." The girl looked at the approaching lights. Then back at Ethan for the first time, she asked a question. A question that sent a chill down his spine. "Why do they look so scared of me?" Ethan did not have an answer. But somewhere among those approaching ships, someone certainly did. And they were getting closer with every passing second. The lights of the approaching ships grew brighter across the night sky. Ethan and the alien child hurried through the rocky hills. Behind them, the crashed hunter drone still smoked on the ground. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The question the girl had asked remained inside Ethan's mind. Why were powerful governments afraid of a child? The more he thought about it, the less sense it made. A child could not threaten entire empires unless she was not an ordinary child. The thought sent a cold feeling through his chest. Ahead, the hills opened into a narrow canyon. Large stone walls rose on both sides, the perfect place to hide from aerial scanners. For now, Ethan guided the girl deeper inside. Eventually, they found an abandoned mining shelter built into the rock. The metal door was rusty, dust covered everything inside. But it would provide temporary protection. Ethan sealed the entrance behind them, for the first time in hours. They were hidden, at least he hoped they were. The girl sat quietly in one corner. Her silver eyes focused on the floor. She looked exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally, like someone carrying a burden she could not understand. Ethan opened the old supply cabinet. Most of it was empty. But he found several emergency food packs and water containers. He handed one to the girl. She accepted it with a small smile. It was the first smile Ethan had seen from her, and somehow it made her look much younger. Like the child she should have been all along while she ate. Ethan activated a portable computer from his emergency kit. If they were going to survive, he needed answers. The bounty notice alone was not enough. He wanted to know who she really was. The computer connected to an old military database. Most classified files remained locked. But Ethan still had access to a few systems from his service years. He entered the information from the bounty alert. Thousands of records appeared, then most of them instantly disappeared. Restricted, deleted, sealed. Someone had erased almost everything. That alone was suspicious. Governments usually preserved records. They did not erase them unless they were hiding something. Ethan continued searching. Minutes passed. Then one file finally opened. The document was over 20 years old. Its title immediately caught his attention. Project Starfall, a warning symbol covered the first page. The information was heavily classified. Most sections had been removed, but a few lines remained visible. Ethan read them carefully, then read them again. His heartbeat quickened. The document described the discovery of an ancient spacecraft floating beyond the outer regions of the galaxy. The ship was older than any known civilization. Thousands of years older, inside the vessel. Explorers had found only one passenger. A child. Ethan slowly looked toward the girl. His hands tightened around the computer. The description matched her perfectly. Silver eyes, white hair, unknown species, the same child. That was impossible. The report was 20 years old. Yet the girl sitting nearby looked exactly 8 years old. Not 28, not 38. The shelter suddenly felt colder. Ethan continued reading. Another section appeared. This one was far more disturbing. Several scientific teams had attempted to study the child. Every team reported unusual events. Advanced computers malfunctioned around her. Military systems shut down unexpectedly. Artificial intelligence programs refused to operate near her. Then came the final visible paragraph. The paragraph that explained why the galaxy feared her, according to the report. Every major prediction system used by advanced civilizations had reached the same conclusion. If the child remained alive, the current balance of power in the galaxy would eventually collapse. No explanation followed, only that single prediction. Ethan stared at the screen in disbelief. Entire governments had spent 20 years hunting a little girl because a machine predicted change. Not destruction, not genocide, change. It sounded insane. Yet billions of credits and multiple fleets suggested they truly believed it. Suddenly, the girl spoke. "What are you reading?" Ethan hesitated, then turned the screen toward her. The child slowly approached. Her eyes scanned the document. At first she looked confused, then something unexpected happened. The moment she saw the image of the ancient spacecraft, her body froze. A strange expression crossed her face. Shock, recognition, and fear. "I know that ship," she whispered. Ethan looked up immediately. "What?" The girl stepped closer to the screen. I've seen it before. You remember it? She placed a hand against her forehead, trying to focus. Fragments of memory flashed through her mind. Bright lights, cold metal walls, voices she could not understand. And a symbol glowing on a doorway, a symbol she had seen many times in dreams. Suddenly she grabbed the edge of the table. Pain filled her face. Another memory appeared. A woman kneeling beside her, smiling, saying something important, but the words remained out of reach. Then the vision vanished. The girl nearly fell. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her breathing became fast and uneven. What happened? He asked. I remembered something. Her voice trembled. Just for a second. Before Ethan could ask more questions, a loud vibration shook the shelter. Both of them looked toward the entrance. Another vibration followed. Stronger this time, dust fell from the ceiling. Then came the sound that made Ethan's blood run cold. Heavy footsteps, not human footsteps, something much larger. Something moving directly above the shelter. The hunters had found them again, but this time, they had brought something far worse than drones. The heavy footsteps continued above the shelter. Each step shook the walls. Dust drifted from the ceiling and scattered across the floor. Ethan immediately turned off the computer screen. The room fell into near darkness. Only a small emergency light remained glowing in the corner. The alien child stood beside him. Her face had become pale again. Whatever was outside, she could feel it. And it terrified her. The footsteps stopped. Silence followed, a long, uncomfortable silence. Then a deep metallic sound echoed through the canyon, like giant steel doors opening somewhere nearby. Ethan slowly moved toward a narrow observation slit built into the shelter wall. Carefully, he looked outside. His stomach tightened. Standing in the canyon was a machine unlike anything he had ever seen. It was nearly 3 stories tall. Its black armor reflected the moonlight. Blue lights glowed beneath its metal shell. Several weapon systems were mounted along its arms and shoulders. The machine looked less like a soldier and more like a walking fortress. Behind it stood dozens of armed hunters. None of them entered the shelter. None of them moved closer. Almost as if they were afraid of something, or waiting for something. Ethan stepped back from the observation slit. What is it? The girl whispered. Trouble, he answered. That was the simplest way to describe it. The giant machine suddenly projected a holographic image into the air. A tall figure appeared, an elderly alien wearing military clothing. His face carried scars from old battles. His eyes looked cold and calculating. The hologram spoke. Its voice echoed through the canyon. Child, we know you are inside. Come out peacefully. The girl immediately stepped backward. Fear filled her eyes. Ethan noticed something strange. The message was directed only at her. Not him, not the hunters, only her. The hologram continued. You have nowhere left to run. No one can protect you forever. For a moment. The girl lowered her head, as if she were considering surrender. Then Ethan saw tears forming in her eyes. That was enough. He had seen frightened children before. He had seen governments make excuses before. And he had spent enough years following orders he regretted. Not this time, not again. The hologram waited. Then Ethan walked directly in front of the girl. The old soldier's image noticed him for the first time. Their eyes met. Move aside, human, the commander said. This does not concern you. Ethan crossed his arms. It concerns me now. The commander's expression hardened. You have no idea what she is. Neither do you, Ethan replied. For the first time, the commander became silent. That reaction told Ethan more than words could, even after 20 years. They still did not fully understand the child, yet they hunted her anyway. Finally, the commander spoke again. If she remains free, billions may suffer. Ethan shook his head. That's a prediction, not proof. The hologram vanished without another word. A few seconds later, The giant machine began moving toward the shelter. Slow, steady, unstoppable, the negotiation was over. The hunters had chosen force. Ethan quickly grabbed his equipment. The shelter would not survive a direct assault. They needed another way out, fortunately. Old mining shelters usually had emergency escape routes. He searched the walls until he found a faded maintenance panel. After forcing it open, he discovered a narrow passage hidden behind it. "Come on," he said. The girl followed immediately. Together they entered the tunnel just as a powerful impact shook the shelter. Metal screamed, concrete cracked. The giant machine had begun breaking through. Ethan and the child hurried deeper underground. The tunnel twisted through the mountain. Old pipes and cables lined the walls. The air smelled of rust and dust behind them. Distant explosions echoed through the rock. The hunters were still coming, minutes later. The tunnel opened into a forgotten mining chamber. Ancient drilling equipment stood abandoned across the cavern. Massive machines rested beneath decades of dust. The place looked like a graveyard for technology. Then the girl suddenly stopped walking. Her eyes focused on something at the far end of the chamber. A symbol, the same symbol she had seen in her memory. The same symbol from the ancient spacecraft. It was carved into the wall. Bright silver lines glowed beneath layers of dust. As if the mark had been waiting for her, Ethan noticed it too. "What is that?" The girl slowly approached. "I don't know, but I've seen it before." The moment her hand touched the symbol, the entire cavern began shaking. Ancient lights activated throughout the chamber. Dust exploded from the walls. Machines that had been silent for decades suddenly came to life. Deep beneath the ground, hidden engines awakened. Ethan stared in disbelief. "What did you do?" The girl looked just as shocked. "I didn't mean to." Then something incredible happened. A section of the cavern wall slowly opened, revealing a massive hidden room beyond. Inside stood technology unlike anything either of them had ever seen. Silver structures glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols covered every surface. Everything looked ancient, yet impossibly advanced. The room had been hidden for centuries, maybe longer. At the center stood a single crystal pillar. The moment the girl saw it, another memory flashed inside her mind. The woman from before, the smile, the voice. And this time she heard one sentence clearly. A sentence that made her heart stop. "When the stars grow dark, you must find the guardians." The vision disappeared. The girl stumbled backward. Ethan caught her. "What did you see?" Before she could answer, the crystal pillar suddenly activated. A beam of light shot upward, and a holographic image appeared above it, the image of a woman. A woman who looked exactly like the child. Only older. The woman slowly opened her eyes. Then she spoke words that neither Ethan nor the girl were prepared to hear. "If you are seeing this, my daughter, then they have finally found you." The cavern became completely silent. Ethan and the alien child stared at the glowing hologram. Neither of them moved, neither of them spoke. The woman floating above the crystal pillar looked almost identical to the girl. The same silver eyes, the same white hair, the same calm expression. There was no doubt this was her mother, or at least a recording left behind long ago. The child slowly stepped forward. Her hands trembled. "My mother?" she whispered. The holographic woman smiled sadly, as if she had expected that question. "Yes, little one, if you are seeing this message, then I am no longer with you." The girl's eyes filled with tears. For years she had lived without answers, without family, without knowing who she was. And now, after all this time, she was finally hearing the voice she had lost. The hologram continued. "My name is Lyra. I am one of the last guardians of Aetheris." The strange name echoed through the cavern. Ethan had never heard it before, neither had the girl. But somehow it felt important, very important. The civilization of Aetheris existed long before the modern galaxy, Lyra said. We were explorers, teachers, and protectors. We helped young civilizations grow. We believed knowledge should unite people. For a moment, the woman's expression darkened. Then others discovered our greatest creation. The hologram flickered slightly. Ancient symbols appeared around her. Ethan watched carefully. This was the truth the galaxy had been hiding. Our people created a living network capable of connecting every advanced system in existence. Ships, governments, weapons, artificial intelligence. Everything. The girl listened silently. Trying to understand, Lyra continued. The network was meant to bring peace. But many leaders saw another possibility. Control. Ethan immediately understood. Any government that controlled such technology could rule the entire galaxy. Wars would become meaningless. Resistance would become impossible. The power was unimaginable. Our people refused to surrender the network, Lyra said. So they destroyed us. The cavern fell silent again. The child lowered her head. An entire civilization erased because others wanted power. The story sounded tragic, but Ethan still did not understand one thing. Why were they hunting her? Almost as if answering his thoughts, Lyra continued. Before our final world fell, we made one last choice. We hid the network. We sealed its location where no empire could find it. Then the hologram looked directly at the child. And only one person carries the key. The girl's eyes widened. No, Ethan whispered. He already knew the answer. Lyra nodded. You. My daughter. The words echoed through the chamber. The child took a step backward. Shock covered her face. She was not a weapon. She was not a monster. She was a key, the key to technology powerful enough to reshape the entire galaxy. Suddenly everything made sense. The 20-year hunt. The enormous bounty, the fear, the lies. Every government wanted control of the network. And the child was the only way to find it. At that moment, a violent explosion shook the cavern. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Dust rained from above. Ethan immediately turned toward the entrance. The hunters had arrived again. A second explosion followed, then a third. The giant machine was tearing through the hidden facility. They had very little time left. The hologram remained active. My daughter, Lyra said softly. You must choose carefully. The network can save civilizations or enslave them. Never allow it to fall into the hands of those who seek power over others. The child wiped tears from her face. For the first time since Ethan had met her, something changed in her expression. The fear remained. But now determination appeared beside it. She finally knew why she had been hunted. She finally knew why people feared her. And she finally knew she could not keep running forever. Another explosion shook the cavern. Large cracks spread across the walls. Then warning lights activated throughout the ancient facility. A computerized voice echoed around them. Security breach detected. Defense systems online. Ethan looked up. Defense systems? The ancient machines throughout the chamber suddenly awakened. Silver lights glowed everywhere. Hidden doors opened. Strange drones emerged from the walls. Not hunter drones. Guardian drones, ancient ones, hundreds of them. The facility was protecting itself and protecting her, outside. Sounds of battle immediately erupted. Energy blasts echoed through the mountain. Metal crashed against metal. The ancient defenses had engaged the hunters. Ethan could hardly believe what he was seeing. The facility had been waiting all these years for the child's return. The hologram slowly began fading, its power source weakening. Before disappearing completely, Lyra spoke one final time. There is one place left, the Sanctuary of Stars. There you will learn the truth about your future. The image flickered, then vanished. The crystal pillar went dark. The girl stared at the empty space where her mother had been. Her heart felt heavy, but for the first time in her life, she had a direction, a purpose. She was no longer running blindly. Then Ethan's scanner suddenly beeped. A warning appeared on the screen. His face immediately became serious. "What is it?" The girl asked. Ethan showed her the display. Dozens of ships were approaching the mountain. Not one fleet, not two, nearly every major government had arrived. Someone had detected the facility's activation signal, and now they were all coming. An entire armada was gathering outside. The hunt was over. The galaxy finally knew exactly where she was. And this time, they were bringing everything they had. Warning lights flashed across the ancient facility. Red beams moved along the walls. Alarms echoed through every chamber, outside the mountain. The largest fleets in the galaxy were arriving. Thousands of warships filled the sky. Some belonged to powerful empires. Others belonged to wealthy alliances. Many of them had been enemies for centuries. Yet tonight they stood together for one reason. The alien child. Ethan stared at the scanner in disbelief. He had fought in wars before, but he had never seen a force this large. Entire civilizations had come for one small girl. The child looked at the display, then slowly lowered her head. "So many people," she whispered. "They're all here because of me." Ethan shook his head. "No, they're here because of what they want." The difference mattered. And for the first time, the girl understood it. They were not hunting her because she was dangerous. They were hunting her because they wanted power. The ancient network, the hidden technology, the chance to control the future. She simply happened to be the key suddenly. A new signal appeared inside the facility. A glowing pathway lit up across the floor. It stretched deeper into the mountain, toward a sealed door neither of them had noticed before. The ancient system was guiding them without hesitation. Ethan and the girl followed the path. Behind them, distant battles continued. Guardian drones fought desperately against the invading forces. But even ancient defenses could not stop entire fleets forever. Time was running out. The pathway finally ended before a massive circular door. Ancient symbols glowed across its surface. The same symbols the girl had seen on the spacecraft. The same symbols from her memories. As she approached, the door reacted immediately. Silver light spread across the metal. Then the enormous structure slowly opened. A breathtaking chamber waited beyond. Ethan stopped in amazement. The room was enormous, far larger than the facility itself should have allowed. Thousands of glowing stars floated in the air, creating a living map of the galaxy. Every system, every colony, every known civilization, all displayed before them. At the center stood a single platform. The moment the child stepped onto it, the stars began moving. Lines of light connected worlds together, creating a vast network stretching across the galaxy. The hidden network at last, they were seeing it. The girl stared at the glowing connections. A strange warmth spread through her chest. And suddenly another memory returned, not a fragment, not a flash. A complete memory. She remembered her mother. She remembered her home. She remembered the final day. Her people had known the attackers would come. They had known they could not win, so they made one final sacrifice. They placed the network's key inside her, then sent her away aboard the ancient spacecraft. Not to preserve power, but to protect everyone from it. Tears filled her eyes. Now she finally understood. The network was never meant to belong to one ruler, one empire, or one government. It was meant to connect civilizations, to help them cooperate instead of fight, to share knowledge instead of weapons. Her people had died protecting that dream. Suddenly, every star in the chamber flashed. A new message appeared. Network access available. Authorized key detected. Ethan looked at the girl. "This is your choice." The child stared at the message. If she activated the network, every government would try to seize it. The wars might never end, but if she destroyed it, her people's greatest achievement would vanish forever. For several seconds, she stood silently, thinking, remembering, choosing. Then she smiled. A small but confident smile, and she reached toward the glowing display. "I know what my mother wanted," she said. The stars immediately brightened, the network activated. But not in the way anyone expected across the galaxy. Military systems suddenly disconnected from central control. Secret databases became public, hidden government records were revealed. Information that powerful leaders had buried for centuries appeared everywhere. Ordinary citizens gained access to truths they had never been allowed to see. The network was not giving power to rulers. It was giving knowledge to everyone. Panic spread through the fleets outside. Commanders shouted orders. Governments attempted to stop the transmission, but it was already too late. The truth was spreading faster than any ship could travel. The age of secrets was ending. One by one, ships began powering down. Some crews refused to continue the hunt. Others turned back toward home. The alliance holding the Armada together started collapsing. Within hours, the fleets began leaving, not because they had been defeated, but because the reason for the hunt had disappeared. The child was no longer a prize. The network no longer belonged to anyone, peacefully. The glowing stars in the chambers settled into place. The system had completed its purpose. The girl looked toward Ethan. For the first time since he opened his door on that stormy night, she looked truly free. "No one is chasing me anymore," she said softly. Ethan smiled. "No, they're not." Months later, the galaxy would remember that night as a turning point. Historians would debate the network, governments would struggle to adapt, and millions would learn truths hidden for generations. But the greatest change came from something much smaller. One simple choice. 20 years earlier, the galaxy had chosen fear. One human had chosen kindness, and in the end, kindness changed the future of the stars.